Morning, fifth grade. This is Mr. Adeniji with your video for this week. This week we are reviewing food webs. Now remember when we learned about food webs, we learned how they are an extension of a food chain and that we learned that food chains are made from producers, consumers, and decomposers. Now food chains are just an extension of that. So we know that there are more producers and then there are more consumers and more decomposers. So we're just going to go over real quick a recap of food webs. So the first thing that we need to know about food webs is that food webs are made from different parts. So those different parts are decomposers. And we know that decomposers get their energy transferred from deceased animals. So when an animal is deceased, the organism, let's say mushroom, is going to be able to get its energy transferred from the deceased animal to the mushroom in order for it to live. Then we know that food webs are made of consumers. Consumers are any animals that we discussed that are carnivores, herbivores, or omnivores. Now they're going to get their energy transferred from consumers and other producers. And then the last one is producers. And producers are going to always get their energy from the sun because producers are the only organism in the food web that creates its own food, and that is through photosynthesis, which is number 2. Producers use the sun's energy to create their own food through photosynthesis. This is very important. And I say that it's very important because this is probably the most important part. When we think about consumers that only eat plants, if there were no plants for them to eat, there would be no primary consumers. Therefore, the food web would not be able to thrive because secondary consumers would not be able to have any food to eat, and decomposers would not have any energy transferred to them. So I would say this is the most important part of a food web. Then we have 3. Consumers and decomposers get their energy from producers and other consumers. So I made a small food web to explain this. So remember that the arrows indicate energy being transferred. Okay? So we start with our producers, which are the acorns and grass. And remember, they transfer their energy to primary consumers, which we know are usually herbivores or omnivores. So that energy is transferred. And then that energy gets transferred to secondary consumers, which are carnivores. Here we have a fox. And then once this fox deceases, its energy gets transferred to a decomposer, which is the mushroom. Okay? So this shows you how consumers and decomposers get their energy from producers or other consumers. All right, and then our fourth one is that all energy is transferred through food webs by the sun. Okay, so the sun is the most important part of the food web. Okay, and remember why I had said the sun is the most important? Because in order for the food web again to flow, there has to be producers. Okay? There has to be producers because in order for there to be producers, then there will be our primary consumers, our secondary consumers, and our decomposers. And I'll make the arrows. All right. So now we're just going to build our own food web. So knowing what we know about food webs, we can now build our own food web. So I have, and I'm not an artist, so I'm not going to draw, but I did print out pictures of the organisms that we're going to use to build my food web. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort out and find my producers first. Okay, so for my producers, I have a cactus, some star cactus, and grass. Okay, so when we talk about producers, we probably need to make the sun, right? So I'm going to make my sun. Let's see, not too high. It'd be fine. I'll make it down here so that I can have it go up. There's my sun, right? So I'm going to take my producers. And when you build your own food web, I want you to think about the ecosystem that you're building your food web from. Okay, so if I have a cactus and I have a star cactus and I have some grass, when we think of cactus, what ecosystem do we think about? The desert, right? So I'm going to call this my desert ecosystem. Okay. All right. So I have my producers, and what I'm also going to do, I'm going to label that they are producers. So I'm going to put producers. Okay. So we know that a food web is made from producers, consumers, and decomposers. Now, what kind of animals would eat these cactus? So I think about what animals could eat these plants, which would be our primary consumers. So I have a rabbit, a grasshopper, and a kangaroo rat. Okay, so these are going to be my primary consumers. And also the placement where you put your primary consumers and your producers is very important too, because when we start making the arrows for energy being transferred, it's going to help you understand. So I'm going to put my grasshopper right here. My rabbit's going to go up here. And then my kangaroo rat will be right here. Okay. I'm going to switch. So I'm going to put my star cactus here. Here and here. All right. And then I'm going to label these primary consumers. Primary consumers. And then we're going to talk about our secondary consumers. So now we're going to think about animals that are going to eat these primary consumers. And then if you want to, you can put that these primary consumers are mainly herbivore and omnivore. Okay? So that we know that they eat plants and they could possibly eat other consumers. So I have a tarantula and I have a lizard. Okay? These two organisms I know could possibly eat either the grasshopper or the kangaroo rat. Okay? Yes, tarantulas are carnivores, if you did not know. I'm gonna put my lizard right here, and I'm gonna put my tarantula right here. Okay, and then I think about what animals, and these are my part of my secondary consumers. And then I think about, well, what animals could eat these organisms? And I have a hawk and I have a rattlesnake. Right, so my hawk goes up here and my rattlesnake goes up here. What am I missing? A decomposer, right? I have bacteria. Bacteria is also a decomposer. So I'm going to put my bacteria at the top. It does not normally go at the top, but I'm making my arrows go up. So here is my bacteria. Now we're going to show our arrows. Sorry, I forgot to label secondary consumers. And decomposer. Okay, now we are going to draw our arrows. This is where it gets important. So we have the star cactus, the grass, and the cactus. We know that our primary consumers can eat those. So I'm going to draw an arrow from my star cactus to my kangaroo rat, and then I'm going to draw it to the rabbit. I'm going to draw my grass. It's going to transfer its energy to the rabbit, and it's going to transfer its energy to the grasshopper. And the cactus is going to transfer its energy to the grasshopper. And it's also going to transfer its energy to the kangaroo rat and the rabbit. All right, so now we have our arrows. Now for our producers and primaries. Now we're going to draw arrows for our consumers. So we know that the kangaroo rat could be eaten by the tarantula, but we also know it could be eaten by the hawk and also eaten by the rattlesnake. Then we know that the rabbit could be eaten by the tarantula, and it could be eaten by the hawk, and it could also be eaten by the rattlesnake, and the lizard could be eaten by the rattlesnake and be eaten by the hawk and be eaten by the tarantula. Okay, so we know that the hawk is going to get its energy from the kangaroo rat, the rabbit, and the lizard, and that the tarantula is going to get its energy from the kangaroo rat, rabbit, and lizard. Now, what's going to happen to the tarantula? Also, we know that the tarantula could be eaten by the hawk. It could also be eaten by the rattlesnake. Okay? So then we know that the hawk and the rattlesnake, if they were to decease, that the bacteria would get its energy from them. And that is how you create a food web. Now, I want you to make your own food web, and I want you to draw the arrows and label the producers, the producers. Sorry, I forgot to draw my arrow with the sun. The producers, the primary consumers, secondary consumers, and decomposers. That's it for today, this week.